Cool.
So thanks very much, Dan. Is it Dan? Do you prefer Daniel or Dan?
Dan's fine.
Dan. Thank you, Dan, for joining me today on the podcast. How are you this afternoon?
I'm very well. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. So today we're going to have a bit of a rant. So just to warn those in advance, we might actually become quite offensive. So if you're easily offended, then you might want to just, I don't know, go and subscribe to another podcast that's, not as honest as this one. So, but if you want
to multiply, absolutely.
yeah. So if you're quite happy to have an open discussion, then listen on. So before we get going, Dan, tell me a little bit about what you do and how we met.
No, indeed. Well, so yeah, how we met is an interesting one. So just pure admiration for your social media, really. And I got in touch and was like, I fucking love your Instagram, and I think we sing off the same hymn sheet. So I thought I've got to do a Facebook Live with this chick. This chick knows her shit, which is rare in this industry. There are so many few good people, and there are so many twats. It's very difficult to filter out the group from the shit. And thankfully, with you, I managed to find the diamond in the rough. That sounds horrific, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The good with it amongst the horrendous shitstorm that we face. But my background is I was originally online marketing, so I used to work for Toshiba. I got really, really fat, 23, just under 23 stone. I then went on this kind of journey to lose my weight. I kind of hit a rock bottom moment with my lifestyle. I wasn't happy. I just broke up with a relationship. I was obese and miserable and all that type of stuff. I was in the shower one day, cleaning myself, caught my reflection. I thought, fuck, I have let myself go. And it was more to do with the fact that I was just miserable more than any, and I was just disgusted with how I looked. So after a bit of a cry, I then decided to go on this mission to change that. I didn't know anything at this stage. This was 8 years ago now, and I literally had no idea about nutrition. So I went on the diet bandwagon. I did Slimming World, which we'll talk about more later. I did Weight Watchers, I did 5-2, I did the carrot diet, the celery diet, the soup diet. Mate, I've done them all. And it wasn't until I fainted in Sainsbury's after 4 days of eating nothing but celery.
Oh my God.
Did I realise that things can't be this difficult. So the paramedics took me back home, and my flatmate at the time was an ex-UK national swimmer and a personal trainer, ironically. And he said, mate, look, you're doing this all wrong. You've got to change your approach. And I forced him to sit through so many David Attenborough documentaries. Love David Attenborough. I love science. I love astrology, astronomy, and not astrology.
I was going to say, what star sign are you?
Yeah, that's the wrong word to say. I love physics, chemistry, biology, and he said, look, you just need to direct that passion and that thirst for science into the science of nutrition. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, fine. So I then went down that path, and then became a PT, and then after losing 8 stone, did bodybuilding, front cover modelling, all that type of shit, which I, in retrospect, hated, but at the time was part of my kind of process. And then got into coaching, personal training, and then realised nutrition was where I just love everything nutrition and mindset related. Mindset, I think, is my big thing moving forward. Mm-hmm. Internal motivators, the psychology of why we do, the habits, behaviours, the emotions, how that all affects our food choices, mm-hmm. Moderation, education, I think, is key. So, and that's kind of where I've developed over the last 8 years, really.
Yeah, it's been quite a journey, and you can, in the upcoming discussion we're going to have about certain diets and things, you're a been there, done that kind of guy. So you have the experience, and you're everything that we're going to talk about today is from both of our personal experiences, and we, like you, the main thing for me at the moment is to sort of help people understand that it doesn't need to be hard. It doesn't need to be complicated. It doesn't need to be confusing. But unfortunately, we live in a world these days where people profit out of confusing you, and we're sort of we do similar things, you and I, And we're trying to sort of sell a long-term solution in a quick fix world. So what do you think about the world the way it is right now? What do you think about the world? Do you like philosophy as well? No, what I really mean is the state that things are in just now. What are your thoughts on where we go from here? Because, you know, you and I are two people in a world full of 6-7 billion people. You know, over 50% of that 60% are overweight or obese. So where do we begin?
Well, I think the first thing really to identify there is you mentioned you and I do similar things, and we do, and I think it's fantastic that, you know, two professionals can reach out and try and not join forces, but have a conversation to help other people. And I don't think enough coaches do that. I know Ben does a great job, Ben Coomer does a great job of getting people in his podcast. I know you guys are mates, and, you know, there's a few others, a select few others who actually want to talk to other coaches, because there's this fear that, you know, you're going to either be shown up or you're going to steal someone else's clients or some form of insecurity. Where, as you just mentioned, there's 7 billion people on the planet, 3.5 billion are fat or obese and miserable. There's a lot of fishing there before we've all got to worry about stealing clients, right?
Yeah, so, exactly.
First thing, you know, I'd commend yourself for just kind of just talking to other coaches and just trying to help other people with as many different viewpoints as possible, singing off the same hymn sheet. You know, I think that's a lot of coaches need to take a leaf out of that book. But in terms of what my views are in the dieting world is, you bang on the money. We're trying to sell a long-term solution, and it's boring, right? It's not sexy, right? Because we're not trying to get people jacked up and shredded in 6 weeks, or, you know, get the glutes which are going to attract your mate in 12 weeks, or whatever the sexy goal is. Bikini body in 4 days, and it's not sexy. What we're talking about is health and happiness and moderation and education, and trying to go, you know, what do you want to achieve in the next 12 months, 5 years, 10 years? Where's your happy goal? How are we going to achieve a lifestyle that's going to make you genuinely healthy and happy? Everything else falls into place after you achieve those two things. And that's just not sexy. You can't, and the only way you can make that sexy is if you had a topless woman telling it. You know, and that's a topless man. Right? It's just, other than that, it's not sexy. So I think that's our biggest marketing challenge, and the only way we are able to connect to an audience is once the audience has exhausted those sexier options, which we know are fucking shit. Excuse my French. Yeah. Do you mind swearing on your podcast?
No, not at all.
No, good, fine. Sorry.
I'm surprised I haven't dropped one yet, to be honest.
Should have asked before I said fucking shit. So it's you know, and I was that person. I was that guy who I believe everybody has to reach this point before they can make a genuine lifestyle change. Is you have to hit rock bottom. As depressing as that may sound, and as sad as that may sound, I don't think people will be ready to make the changes they need to make, to open the ears they need to listen, to accept the information they need to make that change, unless they've hit a place where nothing's working, they're genuinely miserable, and now they're like, help me. Yeah. And I think that's where we come in.
Yeah, I thought someone once said to me, the pain of staying the same has got to be greater than the pain of change before anything will move. And I cannot explain how much I can apply that to my life and other people's lives as well. And like you say, the solution is not a sexy one at all, which is, I think, why we are in such a bad place in the world. But before we start talking about the diet industry, what do you think of the other players in the world at the moment that are affecting our global issue with being overweight? What are your thoughts on things like food marketing and the environment that we live in? Is it genuinely more difficult to lose weight these days because of everything that we face in our day-to-day life, or is it that we are perhaps being lazy and not seeking out the correct solution?
I think now it's even easier. It's easier now than it's ever been to get the information you need to make the change. Because there's people like you and I screaming it every single day. Yes, we're screaming it in a field of other twats screaming misleading information and taking advantage. But, you know, it doesn't take long to find the right people to follow, you know. It's so I think it's easier now than it ever has been. I personally don't feel that marketing fast food is the issue at all. I think Jamie Oliver's got it all wrong, for example, you know, constantly focusing on sugar tax, these energy drinks. I mean, if it was that easy, if sugar genuinely caused all the problems we had, just remove sugar. And then we would remove all ill health. And it's just an example of how sugar is not the problem. You know, there's zero to little evidence to suggest that sugar is causing all these issues. There's a great graph that shows the reduction in sugar content in today's society, but the increase of obesity. So, you know, sugar has no link to obesity, and fast food has no link to obesity. Yes, people who are obese and overweight consume these foods. There's no denying it. But where I focus, and I believe you tackle a lot as well, is why are we eating these foods? Not because of the marketing. What is it inside here? What's going on up here in the head? What's going in the heart? Why are we turning to food to cope with the emotional pain, the stress, the pressures of today's world, the anxiety, the social structure, all these things that come into the account? And we've developed a coping strategy since we were 0 days old, that when we're upset, when we're in pain, when we're in agony, have some milk, be fed, eat some food, have something carbohydrate rich. When we fall over as a kid and we hurt ourselves, we're given a lollipop. When we go to the dentist, we're given a lollipop.
Oh my goodness, don't get me started on that.
So all of these things at school, when you feel sick, you're given a chocolate bar. Now all these things, we develop a connection with food and carbohydrates more specifically because we know that carbohydrates release serotonin, that directly reduces cortisol. So there's this relationship, this instinctual, hormonal, and habitual relationship with food. That is the problem. That's what we need to address, not the food, because we're going to turn to food to reduce stress. We know this. But there are other ways to reduce stress without food. But the problem relies in addressing the stress. It's got nothing to do with sugar.
Yeah,
and don't get what Jamie Oliver's doing.
No, I do agree in a sense with what you're saying in regards to, you know, changing habits of a lifetime. And like you say, with these habits are sort of nurtured into us growing up, and then when we get to a certain age, and I'm using the collective word we, I don't mean you and I just mean people in general, or we're not only faced with this nurture that we've received from parents and people of influence in our lives when we're younger, but we then hit an age where we can make our own decisions. And the initial sort of thought, for me, it started when I was in high school, the end of high school, and the first diet that I remember going on was the Slim Fast diet, the one where you just replace your breakfast and your lunch with like this disgusting milkshake. I'll never forget the smell of it. And then you have a healthy meal for your dinner. But I was 16, 17, maybe even younger than that. I didn't know what a healthy meal was. I didn't know what that meant. And then, so the easiest solution is, you know, if you try and remember back to 8 years ago when you started this journey, it's easy for us to sit here and go, okay, eat a healthy meal. I can go into my kitchen and create a healthy meal, no problem. Mm-hmm. The vast majority of people don't actually know what that looks like anymore, because you and I are saying one thing, Jamie Oliver's saying another thing, we've got other people saying this, we've got the Herbalife crew saying this, we've got Slimming World saying this, and then it's like the confusion is unbelievable. So we just go with what everyone else is doing, and that tends to be slimming clubs, things like slimming clubs, meal replacements, and then we, you know, if you're 16, 17, 18, that starts a lifetime of going from one thing to the next, one thing to the next, on to the next. And before you know it, and I'm talking from personal experience, I've worked with thousands of women all over the world. A lot of women are, especially, I only work with women, so I can only really see it from my point of view, get to the point where they're in their mid-50s, late 50s, and they look back and they think, holy shit, I have been on a diet my entire life. And I want to stop this, but I don't know how because it's become such a habit. Is that something you see as well?
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I share your frustration. Again, 90% of my clients are women as well, and I run 2 female companies. So I can, although I do have a few male clients, but it's mainly women, ironically, that I work with. I say ironically because I'm a man, and it's less perceived that I would be able to do that, but I do. And the biggest thing I've noticed here is it's habitual. What we learn from our parents is a massive, huge influence. So if there's someone watching this, and they've been doing Weight Watchers, Slim World, or any diet for the last X amount of years, and they've got a child which is over 7 years old, chances are you've infected is the wrong word, but you've installed a lot of coping strategies into your child now that they're likely to be using or will use for a long time in their life unless they seek serious education and coaching to unwind it. And the reason why I say 7 is because there's a lot of psychology papers showing us that there's this, what they call the blueprint, the psychological blueprint, which is between 4 to 7 years old, is what we learn within that specific golden years, 3 years, 4 to 7 years old, defines a habitual blueprint for the rest of our lives. So, for example, look left and right when you cross the road. Don't touch that flame; it will hurt you. You touch the flame and it hurts you. Great, my parents were right. I'm not going to do that. I can't think of another example now. Don't breathe in water; you'll drown. Those types of things that we're told between 4 to 7 years old, and we challenge them and we learn from them, but. We now know, and you'll do this, whenever you cross the road, you just look left and right. It's instinct. You don't even think about it. You don't touch a flame when you see one because you know it's going to hurt you. So, and this is the exact same level of ingrained learning that we find with diets and food and how we eat and how we consume and whether or not we're going to eat our food in front of the TV and mindlessly eat, or whether we're forced to stay at a table to finish our food. Or whether we're forced to eat a certain food because it's deemed healthy, in inverted commas, And so all these things we have to take into account, and it's very difficult for a woman. Let's refine this to women. Is when they're in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, to unwire those learnings. Imagine if you're 60 years old and you've been on a diet for 45, 50 years. It's not impossible by any chance. So don't take this as a demoralising message, ladies. But it's a lot of work is going to be required to unwire that learning, and that's why I'm now a huge fan of focusing. Well, I want to develop and focus into the kind of school area because I think a lot of adults, myself included, we're pretty fucked. We've developed so many coping strategies, so many ingrained habits that, yes, it is possible to unwind, certainly. We know this. I'm an example of it. You're an example of it. But if we can get it before the kid has developed those habits, that's when I think that's, I believe, the answer to obesity.
No, I totally agree. So let's talk about slimming clubs because I'm desperate to get writing about this. I get asked all the time, Rachel, why have you got such a bee in your bonnet about Slimming World? And normally the people that ask me that are people who are diehard Slimming World members, which is fair enough. We all have our vice. I'm a member of CrossFit and I bang on about that all the time. Ain't nobody going to tell me that shit. But slimming clubs, what are the main flaws? Are they flawed? Do they work?
Oh, well, okay. Well, look, there's lots to talk about here, so let's break down the chapters. But I think the first thing to address straight away is why do you harp on about it? Because I no doubt it's the exact same reason I harp on about it. It's because Slimming World isn't just a diet. Slimming World isn't just a cult, because it is. Slimming World, Weight Watchers, Herbalife 5-2, Atkins, Juice Plus, Cambridge, they physically destroy lives. They don't just help with weight loss, because they do. We know this. They're all successful. They all exploit the calories in, calories out equation. There are millions of examples of how you can lose body fat and lose weight with them. So they work. There's no denying that. Do they work long term? No. That's the thing. Do they encourage eating disorders? Yes, categorically fact. Do they destroy relationships, not only food but within your social structures? Yes, categorically fact. I know so many women who have not gone to weddings because of their fear of food. I lost my best friend through the time I was in Slimming World. I lost my best friend of 12 years because I didn't go to his wedding. Because at the time, again, this is before I knew what I was doing, I was petrified of eating what wasn't on my list of foods to eat. And I made up a bullshit excuse. I said to him, mate, I've got work. This was on a Saturday. I said, mate, I've got to go to work. I'm so sorry. I can't get out of it. And he was like, mate, you're my best man. You've got to come tomorrow. And I said, mate, I can't. I'm really, and this went back and forth. It was obviously incredibly emotional. I was distraught by it. But that goes to show, right? My mindset at the time and what they did to me and my relationship with my best friend, who I now don't speak to, and who's arguably and understandably angry with me, is it ruined an element of my life. I wasn't there for my best friend's most magical part of his life, and I missed that, and he missed that, and that's an example of how diet clubs ruin lives, and yes, there are people that do these diets and they don't experience that, and they're lucky enough not to develop an eating disorder. They're lucky enough to keep the weight off, and they're lucky enough to have what I would class as a good quality of life moving forward. But we are talking the minority of people that do these diets, and that's my issue. Is if they were just a diet that didn't hurt people and gave out a bit of misinformation, fine, get on with it. It's cool, But when you start ruining lives and you start causing mental disorders, eating disorders, increasing our ability to develop depression and anxiety, these are all proven things that diets do, then I'm like, no, you need to fucking stop. You need to fucking sort your shit out, and I'm going to take you down as a result. And I know that's why you get your bee in your bonnet, and that's why I get my bee in my bonnet. And I get so much grief from people that go, stop trying to attack other people to make yourself look good. And I'm like, I'm not doing that.
I get that too.
I'm not doing that. I'm not attacking Slimming World to make myself look good. Yes, I have a counter product, and yes, your Ditch the Diet is the counter product. Yes, that's what we do. But we're in this space because we passionately want to help people. Slimming World and Weight Watchers aren't fucking doing that.
No.
That's my problem. So I'm going to develop my business when I can, and you're going to do your thing. But if I can do that and help people and point out that Slimming World physically hurts people, I'm going to do that as well.
Yeah.
And I don't mind taking a bit of flack for that.
Yeah, no, me too. Like, a lot of people say to me, like, you're only doing this to get publicity and marketing, and you know what? Too right I am.
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
I create these posts and I write these things and I put swear words in them and I make them tongue-in-cheek and eye-catching because I want to catch people's eyes, even if they're not ready to listen to what I have to say. Then if that's what I have to do, then that's what I will do, because I can tell you right now that the softly tapping you in the shoulder, oh, it'll be all right, don't worry, approach doesn't work.
No.
And like you, it wasn't slimming clubs for me. It was clean eating, low carb shit that happened to me. And when you spoke about missing your best mate's wedding, it sort of like hit me somewhere that I was like, whoa. I didn't miss a wedding, but there were two times that I can remember specifically that I thought the answer to all my problems lay in the fact that I had to cut carbs out. Now, by carbs, I mean, I didn't know at this time, years and years ago, that fruits and vegetables were carbs. By carbs, I mean, I cut out pretty much everything that I really enjoyed eating. So things like bread, rice, chocolate, Maltesers were my favourite. Everything like that, everything. And I used to teach roughly around 25 to 28 hours of group fitness classes a week at this time. So it's like 25 hours of hardcore exercise.
With no carbs.
Yes. And it was one Thursday night class, 6:15. I'll never forget it, body pump. I got about 75% through the class and the entire room just went woo.
Wow. Wow.
And I decked it.
Really?
Yeah.
In front of everyone?
Yeah, oh yeah.
No.
It slid down the wall.
Oh, no.
And in fact, this happened more than once. And to me, that was the kind of turning point to me, I suppose. The sort of, it wasn't rock bottom because I did go lower than that. But at that point, that was the point to me that said, oh, okay.
Alarm bells.
Alarm bells went off, but I think it might be my nature in that I'm a stubborn bitch. And if I start something, you can better believe that I'm going to follow it through. So it almost drove me to be even more, to punish myself even more. So although deep down I knew that what I was doing wasn't good, for some reason that moment spurred me on to do it even more.
Gotcha. Sure.
It was like, I'll show you. This will work. I'm not
I'm
starting something. Yeah, I'm not starting something and then not finishing it. But I did finish it eventually. But my relationship with food, and I'm being perfectly honest here with everybody. My relationship with food from that moment forward, or from that period of my life, has never been the same again. To this day, I fight it on a daily basis. Sometimes still. And I missed out on. I used to go to friends' houses and they would be cooking dinner and I would be panicking about what they were going to cook in case it wasn't what I was allowed to eat. I
can't even remember the amount of dinners I didn't go to or nights down the pub I didn't go to.
Me too.
I mean, just endless.
Yeah, same here. And I've got a couple of friends in particular who are incredible cooks, incredible home cooks. And it used to when I look back, I think, oh my God, all those meals that I missed out on, can I go back and eat them now? Or my friends would be sitting around watching films, bowls of Maltesers, bowls of Haribo, things like that, all sitting around, and I'd be like, oh my God, I can't believe they're going to eat them. They're not clean foods. And I'm sitting there with the saliva dripping off my chin, and I'm laughing now, but I can tell you it was not
distraught at the time.
Not a nice thing.
I know exactly. So I took Tupperware to my friend's 30th birthday, and he had a full-on buffet there. And I took Tupperware. I had my chicken, rice, and broccoli in my Tupperware.
Oh, I've been there.
So, I just wanted to be so hardcore. I wanted to be so on point, and
Yeah, I've been there.
The emotional stress that it causes you is just not worth the extra couple of calories of eating what everyone else is eating.
No, exactly. While we're on that subject of chicken, rice and broccoli and Tupperware, I've recently posted on Facebook, in fact it was just the other day, talking about calorie counting, because this seems to be a sort of up and coming thing, especially on Instagram at the moment. Lots of people message me should I be calorie counting, what should I be doing? I calorie counted and used MyFitnessPal for a number of years as well. In fact, I've literally just stopped doing it in the last few months. And what are your thoughts on that approach? It's taken me a long time to come to this decision. I don't know if you saw the post that I made. It has
I'll go back and read it.
It's taken me a long time to come to this decision, actually, but I was swithering whether to put a part of the course that I'm writing or a completely separate course about calorie counting, macro counting, and how to do it properly. But I personally think it's just another thing to obsess over. What are your thoughts on that? It has its place in the interim, but
it definitely has its place, yeah. And I think let's define the audience here. If anybody is listening to this and they've ever had an eating disorder, then you are exempt from what I'm about to say, right? So calorie counting should never be anything, in my opinion, that anybody that's had an eating disorder, anorexia, bulimia, those extremes should even entertain. There's other ways you can go around improving your lifestyle on that. However, if you're an obese person or an overweight person, in my opinion, you have to calorie count to some extent. Mm-hmm. You have to be aware of how much petrol you're putting in your car. You have to. Yes, you can do it without. There's no denying. There's no denying you can do it. I've done it many times with overweight clients who've had a history of anorexia, so it's just not even something I entertain, calorie counting. However, if you are overweight, I believe the strategy, your 5-year strategy should be calorie count up until the point where you're hormonally and metabolically more stable, that you can feel hunger and you can feel satiety when you fill up, and then you can start to get to the point where you can wean yourself off of calorie counting. Macro counting is part of the calorie counting, has its place, particularly if you're an athlete, performance, etc. Having the right levels of proteins and fats are essential, really. But and again, long term, it's great that you're in the position now that you're not able to be there. I'm not yet, but the long term goal for anybody in life, in my opinion, should be being able to eat freely, but understanding what they're eating. And I think to the point where you get to the point where maybe you're going through more emotional struggles and you end up eating more food because you're reverting back to those old habits, and you start seeing a bit of weight come on, then just pop back and go back to calorie counting so you know how much is coming in. But it's difficult to know. It's difficult to do fat loss without knowing how much petrol is going in that car, I think.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I came to the decision that I will be writing a short course on it, but it's not going to be available in the academy for at least the first 6 months of someone's journey. So if they stay on for 6 months, it will appear on their dashboard after that time, if they still feel that they want to do that. But that's the kind of decision that I came to. So going back to diet culture, diet clubs, there are a lot of people out there that are probably listening to this podcast right now. Hopefully there are a lot of people out there listening to this podcast who are too scared to ask for help. They're following a slimming club, and I know you're out there because nearly 10,000 of you follow me on Instagram. And perhaps are starting to see the light a little bit, but don't really know what to do. So maybe they've made the decision, right, okay, this is definitely not working for me. Like maybe coming to that admission point of, okay, I've been doing this for 5-10 years. It's not working, but I don't know where to begin. What advice would you give to that person?
I think the first thing to talk about is identifying whether it is now the time to change for you, right? So it's a nice, easy identification process. If you've done Slimming World, when I say Slimming World, I mean any diet club, right? But if you've done Slimming World more than once, then you need to change your approach, in my opinion, because you're going back to something that failed you the first time. And this is where Slimming World exploit and take advantage, because if on average people do Slimming World 4.3 times, right? That's the industry data out there at the moment. And 60% of people that do Slimming World put the weight back on within a year. And 60% of those people put more weight back on than they started. So we're talking huge numbers, right? We're talking about Slimming World have 1 million members. So we're talking 600,000 people of Slimming World active at the moment are destined to put their weight back on, plus more. And this is scary data. This is fucking horrific data. Imagine if you bought a car and it broke down 60% of the time. You'd want your money back, right? You go to Slimming World after a year and ask for your money back and see what the reaction you get. Which is why I offer 100% money back guarantee on all the stuff I do, because education can't fail, right? Exactly. I believe if you turn everyone into your own mechanic, if your car falls down and breaks down, you just fix it yourself, right? Metaphorically speaking, if you get to the point in your life where you want to lose a bit of body fat, if you know how and you've got the tools, not only the mindset tools, but the nutrition knowledge to do that, you're laughing. You never need to go to a diet again. So the first thing I would say is identify if you need to change your approach. So if you've just done Slimming World and you've done no other diet before and you're getting on the bandwagon of Slimming World because your mum's done it, look at your mum and your auntie or your nan or your friend that's offered it. Have they done it more than once? If they have, it hasn't worked. Simple as that. And usually people have done it more than once, a lot more than once. The average is 4.3. That says it all. So if you're in that and and you're now thinking, okay, I've done Slimming World 4.3 times at least, and I now need to make a change, but I don't know how. The next bit of advice I would say is swallow a bit of pride. Just ask for some help. The worst thing, and I fell down this trap, is pride can be your biggest weakness as well as your biggest strength. And my dog, can you hear that?
Yeah. Oh.
Like my little French bulldog. The shadows moved and he's got scared, I'm sure.
Oh.
So, swallow a bit of pride and message someone like me, someone like yourself, someone like Ben, someone like Richie, someone like Dave, someone like whoever are these people who are singing off the same hymn sheet. You've only got to follow yourself, myself, Ben Coomer, Richie Howie, Dave Cotterill, all these other people. Mm-hmm. We're all putting out the same thing. Yeah. Right? Yes, it has a different tone. Yes, it has a slightly different graphic. Yes, it has a different, but it's the same message. Mm-hmm. It's moderation, education, calorie. It's all these. It's this same thing over and over and over. And you've only got to read that a few times to realise these guys are making a living. They're being followed by thousands of people. They can't be wrong, really. They can't all be lying to us. And I know that's a difficult thing to listen to and hear when we're saying that everyone else out there is lying, but we've also come from a place of education and qualifications and experience, right? Yeah. Whereas diet clubs haven't. Your diet rep hasn't got a single qualification to their name. They've gone on a Slimming World intensive course and learned how to read off a presentation. That's all they've done. Typically, their background is weight loss, which is cool. I followed that same path, right? It's awesome to hear someone be inspired to change their life because they lost 4 stone, 5 stone. That's great. But then when they put the 5 stone back on and they're still trying to help you lose that weight, that's when I would start to ask questions.
Yeah, but the vast majority of people don't. That's the problem.
No, and I think that's when you need, if your rep has put all their weight back on and a little bit more, maybe you need to look at someone who walks a different walk, walks the same as they're talking. And I'm not saying that all PTs or coaches should be lean, or that's not what I'm saying at all. But perhaps if you're looking for a fat loss goal, it might be beneficial to follow somebody who has maybe lost a bit of fat and coached other people to do it and hasn't gone backwards themselves. I think that might be a little bit more beneficial.
Yeah. I think some of the behaviours, I was writing a post about this earlier to go up in a few days' time on Facebook. Some of the behaviours that you can develop as part of being a member of a slimming club or any kind of diet, I suppose. I've been receiving a lot of emails this week on the same sort of subject, so I thought that's a sign from the universe that I need to write a post about this to get it out of off my chest. Yeah. Long story short, one of the emails said, I've recently decided to stop Slimming World. I decided to stop on Sunday. On Monday, I ate really, really well, and I felt like a sense of relief. On Tuesday, I sort of had started, this is an actual email, I'd started to think about possibly joining your course to learn a bit more. So once I'd made that decision, I felt a sense of calmness, and then it all went tits up on Wednesday, and I ate myself into oblivion. I ate this, I ate that, almost as though I had to just get it all eaten in case it disappeared and I couldn't have it again. Right. And this is something that I see all the time with people who are part of a slimming club or have been doing diets for years and years and years. It's as though that their favourite things have been taken away for so long that when they're then presented in front of them again, it's like, oh my God, gimme, in case they don't come back again. And that's kind of
restriction binge, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's what I struggled with when I decided that low carb was no longer for me, or clean eating in inverted commas. It's quite a common thing, isn't it? It's not something that alarm bells should ring for you, but it is a common thing that happens.
You've only got to walk into. I ask everyone to do this who listens, particularly if they're Slim World Weight Watchers. Find out what night your local meeting is on. Let's say, for example, it's on a Thursday, right? And let's say it's Thursday at 8 p.m. At 9 p.m, just go and park outside your local fish and chip shop and see how many people go in that night. How many, particularly women of a certain age, go into that around 9:30, 10 o'clock, because there is this common desire, obsession, desire and need and thirst for carbohydrates after someone has not eaten for 2 days because the anxiety of weighing themselves in front of everybody else, wanting to have a good result, so have starved themselves, managed to get all the way up to the weigh-in, left the Slimming World meeting, and then gone, I need some fucking food. Give me some carbs. And it's a fish and chip shop. That's a very, very common journey. And I think if you're living for the fish and chip shop at the end of your Slimming World Club, you need to start asking yourself some questions. There's more to life than weighing yourself like cattle every week and binge eating half an hour after you leave the meeting. I mean, when that happens, it would be like, metaphorically, it's exactly like an alcoholic leaving the AA centre, going into the pub. That's what it's like. And I'm not suggesting that food is addictive, because we know it's not, but eating behaviour can be. And that's what we're talking about. We're talking about binge eating, emotional eating, restriction, and that's what slimming clubs, diet clubs specialise in, is developing that disorder. And that's why I dislike them so much.
Yeah, same here, totally. But it is something that you can get help with, and it's not going to be your life forever. So if you decide right now, if you're listening to this at the moment and you're thinking, oh, actually I do want to stop dieting, like I want to quit this right now, and I want to actually make a difference for the rest of my life. It doesn't need to be like that forever. Yes, you may experience this sort of all or nothing attitude, but you can fix it. Like, it's not a lifelong thing, and that's what I want to get across, that if you are feeling like that and you feel out of control, it's because of the previous habits and the previous history and the habits that you've instilled over however long you've been on a diet for. But it's not something that is going to be forever, and there is hope. Because I think a lot of people have sort of lost the hope. It's like, this is it. Like, this is me now, so I've just got to accept it and, settle for the fact that this is it.
Well, the other thing I would urge people to look at is the business model of these companies. Is Weight Watchers and Slimming World is a weekly payment for a reason. They want to retain that revenue as a business. Whereas when you look at people like myself, like yourself, and any coach worth their money, they don't want their clients to be long term.
No, exactly.
They want to become redundant, right? Any good coach wants to make themselves redundant, because as a business model for you and I, that's better, because if we work with someone 6 months later, we make ourselves redundant because they've learned so much and they're doing so well without us, then they're going to tell 10, 20 of their friends about us, right? Whereas if we keep them locked into a weekly direct debit for 3 years and they haven't seen any loss, do you think they're going to tell people about us? Not really, right? They're probably going to think twice before recommending us. But that is what Slimming World do. And Slimming World prey on the desperation of women mainly, and they also understand and take advantage of the psychology of the female mind when it comes to buying processes. Slimming World know that women don't just like to buy alone, they like to buy in pairs or in threesomes. Typically women don't go shopping by themselves, they go with a friend. And so and typically women don't like to go to somewhere new by themselves. They'll go with a friend for support. And men are the same, don't get me wrong, but it's more typical of the female psyche, and that's what Slimming World take advantage of. And I hate companies that take advantage of people. Fucking hate it. And that's why they're so successful. It's got nothing to do with how well they're doing with fat loss. Yes, people have seen success. The majority haven't. The industry data is out there. You cannot argue with it. The next time you see a Slimming World advert or Weight Watchers advert on TV, look at the bottom of the fine print. They legally, the Ofcom and the Advertising Standard Agency, they have to release what their 1 year average data is. The latest Weight Watchers ad at the bottom says 60% of people, 40% of people see success.
Wow.
What the fuck? This is on the advert and people are still doing it. I'm like, 40% success.
Oh. Can you imagine if they put that on the main advert, like, join Weight Watchers, 40% of people have success? You'd be like, what the fuck?
I mean, and I've seen some coaches out there and they go down the approach of slagging off the client, going, fucking idiots, why do you fall flat? And I'm like, no. These are desperate people that want to see changes. I've been there, you've been there. You know, when you're desperate and you don't know where to go, you're going to go with where the rest of the crowd go. Yeah. And unfortunately, at the moment, you and I are starting off a movement, you know, and other like-minded coaches, this is the beginning of the wave. You know, the start of the wave has been over the last 2 or 3 years. It hasn't been the last 30, 40 years that Slimming have been around. No. Because the education and the ability to have Facebook, sorry, I'm rambling a bit there, but we have this voice now. We have this amazing opportunity to educate as many people as possible, and it's only been the last 2 or 3 years. Yeah. And I think, you know, give it 10 years and Slimming World won't be around, you know. I'm going to buy them and shut them down, but...
like I said the other day, I'll invest.
I'm going to buy fucking Slimming. I will not stop until I buy them and close them down.
Oh, wouldn't that be amazing? It will be amazing when it happens.
I'll let you know. I'll invite the party when that happens.
So, where can we find you? So, whoever's listening wants to find out more about what you do and what's the best links and stuff to get.
Oh, thank you, mate. So Instagram is probably going to be the most obvious route, which is at Dan Wheeler 8020. And then Facebook, there's 2 Facebook channels, which is the 8020 Lifestyle Plan, which is my business, and then you have the Big Friendly Nutrition Guy, which is a new page I've set up. So the 8020 Lifestyle Plan is for it's page for my business, but it's mainly the content you'll find on there is educational based and motivational based. And then on the Big Friendly Nutrition Guy, that's my video channel. Okay. So that's where you're going to be coming next week.
Yeah.
Facebook Live interview, which will probably do the exact same thing.
Yeah, oh no, I'm really looking forward to that. I'm going to make sure that all of your links are in the show notes, so if anyone's listening right now and wants to know more, all you need to do if you're on iTunes or Spotify is just scroll down on the page that you are on listening to the podcast. You'll find the show notes and there'll be clickable links in there as well. So we'll leave it there for today. We might do a part 2 at some stage eventually. Okay. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you today, Dan. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
No, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. I look forward to our Facebook Live.